Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be sharing with you my take on the Avatar: The Last Airbender tag. And this tag was originally created by Hannah from A Clockwork Reader quite a few years ago, I think. But I was tagged by Angela from Literary Science Alliance. I always have trouble with her channel name because it has alliteration and like it doesn't flow very well from my Finnish tongue. Anyway, I was tagged by her because she was asking who wants to be tagged on Twitter, and I am a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, if you didn't know. And yeah, I just wanted to do this. So without further ado, let's get started. Best sibling relationship. I think in recent memory, the best sibling relationships that I have read about have been written by Anna-Marie McLemore. Both in Wild Beauty and Blanca Iroha, which are the two books of theirs that I've read, there is a strong, sisterly sibling relationship going on with in Blanca Iroha. Blanca and Roja are both like close sibling sisters, but they are also rivals and there's tension between them. And in Wild Beauty, the Nomeolvide sisters are very close in their relationship to each other, but they are sort of keeping all of their love and all of their affection a little at arm's length because of the curse that's plaguing the family. And I just always find Anna-Marie McLemore's familial relationships very relatable and realistic because they are not all sunshine and roses. They are very much complex and very much fraught with tension and miscommunication and arguments. And as the youngest sibling of three, I can attest that sibling relationships are not always all sunshine. There are lots of storms and lots of fights and some things that are never resolved. So I really appreciate their take on these kinds of sibling relationships. Also, Anna Meriano's Love Sugar Magic trilogy has a more wholesome take on a sibling relationships and on familial dynamics in general. They are also complex, but because the books are targeted towards a middle grade audience, they are a little bit like simplified, and more focus is on the positive aspects of those relationships. So those are two examples that I would like to give. Favorite Starcrossed lovers? I have a hard time with this question because I don't read a lot of books where there is a huge romantic focus. And usually if there is a romantic focus or a romantic element in the book, that is not the thing that is most memorable to me. But for this, I think I will go with one of my favorite manga series. And that is the relationship between Yukari and George from Paradise Kiss by Ai Yazawa. I highly recommend this this manga. It takes place in like a fashion world, and it's a coming of age story, and there's lots of like modeling, fashion and stuff. There's lots of like LGBTQ plus characters, and it's just a lot of fun. But Yukari's and George's relationship is very much that of like unbridled passion, and there's sort of this idea that they're not really good for each other, but you would kind of want to see them succeed anyway, and the end result is kind of bittersweet. And yeah, that's my choice for this question. A book with a disturbing or unsettling concept. For this, I will go with Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. It is one of my favorite classics, and I have always found that book to be very disturbing. I am interested to read some of the non-fiction surrounding the book, because Nabokov based the character of Dolores on a real person that was kidnapped and groomed by a predator. And he never really disclosed that he had done this, and but he had a huge fascination with that case. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is a book that I think is very... It splits people. People either hate it or they love it, and I don't think there are people that are in the in-between camp. You either love it or you hate it. And I think a lot of people, when they hate it, they kind of think that if you love it, you are endorsing the book's viewpoints. And which you have to understand that in Lolita, it is told through the point of view of the predator. It is told from the point of view of a pedophile. And he is the most unreliable narrator. He first of all, he starts to groom his stepdaughter, and then he starts molesting her, and when he is in fear of getting discovered by people, he actually takes the girl and runs off, and they go on this sort of road trip. And all of this while, you see him do these horrible things, and you see these glimpses of how Dolores is trying to alert people to her situation and to her plight and ask people for help, and how the protagonist of Humbert Humbert is spinning this in a way that to the reader it sounds like Dolores is trying to leave him, and his viewpoint makes it seem like Dolores is in a consensual relationship with him, which is obviously not the case, because Dolores is a child. And I think it is important that we have these kinds of stories, because, it makes the reader have to really question what they can trust and what they can believe and who they should believe. And it kind of makes you, if you are rooting for Humbert Humbert, you are complicit, and that is the point. So yeah, I'm going on a huge Lolita gush. Sorry about that, but yeah, that is a book that is, in my opinion, one of the books that has the most unsettling and horrifying concept behind it, but I still like it. A character whose strength surprised you, or the characters in the book? For this, I will go with Maya from The Goblin Emperor. His inner strength and his resilience surprised both me and the characters in the book, because people don't give him due credit for being as politically savvy and intelligent and being a good political player. And one of Maya's strengths is that he has empathy to others, and he believes in the guidance of other people, whereas some of the other characters would view asking for help as a weakness. Maya sees the value in that, and he is constantly surrounding himself with people who will help him and who are useful to him and who he can help in return. So I think that kind of strength is very underappreciated and undervalued in any type of story. So yeah, I would definitely go with Maya from The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. Best short story or poetry collection? Okay, for this I went a little bit of prepared, because I want to talk about my favorite poetry collection, which is Auringonkierto by Saila Susiluoto. I read poems from this when I was in high school, and it has really stood the test of time. So I will read 2 poems, and I will put translations somewhere here. Mind you that they are gonna be rough translations because I am not a professional translator and these have not been officially translated. But I just love these poems and they have stuck with me for almost 2 decades and they're great. So here goes. Tyttö sanoo, sun ystäväsi rakkain aina olla tahtoisin. En koskaan olla tahtoisi, uskoton ja petturi. Jos liian rakkaaksi kävitkin, lue joka toinen rivikin. I get chills every time I read that. And the next one is kind of similar in formatting. Joka ilman sydäntä käy, parhaat palat kantaa. Ei mitään saa, lainkaan näy, se joka kaiken antaa. I love this. I so wish that Finnish literature and Finnish poems and Finnish fiction was more readily available outside of Finland. But it is what it is, and I'm just glad that I am able to share at least some of it on my channel. Best warrior character. For best warrior character, I will go with Brienne of Tarth from A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. And I want to talk about Brienne because Brienne is not the typical kind of warrior character you would imagine. She is someone who thinks of herself as unfit to fill the role society wants to put her in because she's not conventionally attractive. She is tall, she is muscular, she is sort of gangly, and she is broad-shouldered, and she's kind of what would be considered traditionally masculine. And so she tries to emulate masculine behaviors, but that doesn't feel right to her either. She doesn't fit the mold of traditional womanhood, but she also doesn't want to reject her feminine side, and that makes her look to the ideals of knighthood and the valor and the chivalry and the sort of philosophy behind knighthood and the idea that if you are stronger and more physically able than others, then you should use your strength to speak up, you should use your strength to defend those who can't defend themselves. And she's also very empathetic and sympathetic towards women who are in those positions where they have to bear children even if they don't want to. And she talks about women dying in childbirth and things. And she's very empathetic to the plight of women, and part of her wants to partake in that, but another part of her wants to be free and wants to live for her own glory too. So yeah, I just love Brienne, and she kind of embodies the ideals of knighthood, and she always strives to do the right thing. Something which the TV show completely stripped of her, but this is not a talk about adaptations. I will do that in another video. Best redemption arc, or a redemption arc that should have happened. I mean, it is very hard to top the redemption arc that is Zuko, because Zuko's redemption arc is the best, the perfect redemption arc. It basically starts from the first episode. Zuko is never truly villainized in the same way that some other villains are. His redemption was planted from the very first episode, and it is such a complete and perfect character arc. But since I can't use Zuko, I am going to use the example of Scar from A Fullmetal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. And the reason being that Scar's redemption isn't all that satisfying. He doesn't get redeemed in the eyes of everybody. He doesn't get that universal appraisal. Scar's redemption arc is all about redeeming himself, finding acceptance for the sins that he has committed. He cannot be forgiven for all the shitty things he did because he killed people. He was horrible. He tried to kill children even. And it's not about the victims of his crimes forgiving him and him getting redeemed that way. It's about him realizing that he can't go on a path of vengeance and he has to find other ways to impact change in the world, and he has to try to fight for the good, even if the people that he wants to fight alongside don't actually want to join him or don't actually want to accept him as part of the group. And I find his redemption to be so incredibly it's unsatisfying from a fan standpoint, where you would want your fave to be redeemed in the eyes of everyone, but from like a story and character arc and character progression standpoint, Chef's Kiss, Hiromu Arakawa does it perfectly, because Scar can't be redeemed. He can't be forgiven because some of the things he did were unforgivable. So his redemption lies in the fact that he has to live with himself. He has to live with those sins and try to do better and try to be a better person and to accept himself. And that is wonderful. In case you are wondering, I am a huge Fullmetal Alchemist stan, so yeah. Wisest character. This is a very hard prompt to fill out, because if someone is incredibly wise and intelligent and reassuring and all those things that Iroh is, they're not the most interesting character. I think Iroh's effectiveness is due to the fact that we don't see him all the time. He is a side character and he is sort of like a foil to Zuko, and he has done mistakes in the past and he is on a kind of a journey of atonement himself. And he kind of emulates the idea of what Zuko could be. Okay? So in that sense, I want to think about a similar character, a character who fills that same kind of role. And I'm desperately trying to think of one. So I'm going with Shade from the Farseer trilogy. Shade is a complicated character who acts as Fitz's mentor and Fitz's teacher. And Shade also does mistakes, and some of the mistakes that he does are actually things that have a surprising and like a huge impact on the actual trilogy, on the Farseer trilogy. But at the same time, he is the only constant in Fitz's life that truly empathizes with his situation and tries to see things from Fitz's point of view and offer him advice and guidance where he can. And he doesn't always do it in the best possible way, and he can be very gnarly and grumpy and stuff, but I still love him. I love those kinds of mentor characters. But Shade's wisdom doesn't come from the fact that he is always right. Far from it. His wisdom comes from the fact that he can own up to when he didn't do things the right way. And when he, for example, when he should have disclosed things to Fitz that would have maybe prevented some stupid shit going down. But yeah, I choose Shade from the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. Best downfall. Now, best downfall is... that's hard. That's so hard, because I feel like in a lot of fantasy that I've read, the villains are not always... the villains are always not the point or the strongest element. Maybe I've just been reading the wrong kind of fantasies or the wrong kind of science fictions, because I feel like a lot of the time my favorite characters and the things I'm rooting for happen in the main character circle, and I'm less keen on the villains. So I'm like, I could go with Regal or like Jaden from the Farseer trilogy, but then again, was I really satisfied by their downfall? Was it handled the best way it could? I don't think so. I could go with Malkar from the Doctrine of Labyrinths, but also that didn't end completely in the way that I would have liked, and was it really satisfying? Probably not. So I am going to go with Cersei Lannister from A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. Martin. Cersei Lannister has, I think, one of the least appreciated character progressions in any given story. Cersei, when we first met her, was a character that you loved, loathed her. And then, when you get to her point of view, and you start seeing things from her perspective, she's still a despicable person, but you start to understand what made her that way, and you start to feel kind of like an asshole for judging her and being so harsh on her. And now, with all these rereads that I've done of the series, Cersei is one of my favorite characters. I don't like her as a person, but I love her as a character. And Cersei's downfall it's done so well. You've been waiting for that moment to happen like 4 books, and then it happens, and you are gutted. It isn't satisfying. You feel it feels voyeuristic. It feels like you are like she deserves it. But the reason why she's in that position, she's there for all the wrong reasons. She isn't there for all the shitty behavior that she did. She's there for minor mistakes. And for, like, religious zealotry reasons, not for the reasons that you want her to be there. And I think that is the best kind of thing, a downfall that makes you sort of, if not empathize with the villain, not empathize with their plight, at least see for yourself that when you are complicit in acts of violence and this sort of corporal punishment, it should not make you feel good. It should not make you feel satisfied. And I think that is the way it is with Azula. When you see her there, crying and, like, beat up and, like, broken, when you see her there, it isn't satisfying. She's, like, 13 years old. She's a child soldier. She's been abused her whole life. It isn't satisfying to watch. It's sad. And it's meant to be that way. And yeah, I think that's why I will give this to Cersei. Favorite fictional animal. Okay, I think I've used this tag to talk about some really, like, harsh topics and, like, difficult themes and such. So for this, my favorite fictional animal is Falkor the Luck Dragon from The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. I've always loved Falkor. I liked him in the books, and I liked him in the movie. Like, I saw the movie first when I was a child, and then I read the book when I found out that there was a book when I was, I think, in 6th grade or something, and I read them, and they were wonderful, and Falkor continues to be one of my favorite fictional animals. I am getting a tattoo of Falkor at some point when my sister has time to fit me in for an appointment. But yeah, Falkor, hands down. I've always wanted a luck dragon. Purest cinnamon roll. For Purest cinnamon roll, I will just go with Leonora from the Love, Sugar, Magic trilogy by Anna Meriano. Leonora was such a fun main character. She's always upbeat, optimistic. Sometimes she gets to be really stubborn and obnoxious, but she's just a child. She's growing, and I think that she's just such a fun character to read about, and you want her to succeed and you want to grow with her, and yeah, Leonora, definitely. A stubborn character or a character that struggles with letting go. And for this last question, I will go with Essun from the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Essun is both of those things. She is a stubborn, badass woman who, like, when she decides that she will do something, she gets it done. But also, she has a very traumatic, very devastatingly painful past that is sort of keeping her prisoner in a sense. Like, she is still abiding by some of the same rhetoric, by some of the same guidance given to her when she was a younger person, and she kind of perpetuates this circle of violence on her own offspring, on her own children, because she can't let go of the past. And yeah, Essun's character journey is also like, I could just gush and rave about it until the cows come home, because I love those books and I love her character. So yeah, Essun is definitely one that fits this prompt perfectly. And there you have it. This has been my take on the Avatar: The Last Airbender tag. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and tell me in the comments which element would you be able to bend. Leave me an emoji of your chosen element down in the comments so that I know you are here and I know which bender you are. I'm personally a waterbender. I just, like, water is my element. I'm also a Pisces, so, you know, that's just calls to me. But yeah, I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye bye!